As I interviewed the acting Immigration Minister, Alan Tudge, last night, I thought to myself, look, you're a good bloke, but even you don't understand how much Australians want a proper and open debate about the size and scope of our immigration program. Indeed, size and scope are the very words, I think, used by Kristina Keneally, which shows you exactly how much this issue crosses party lines if it has Keneally and Credlin on the same page. Now, I get the politics of why Canberra doesn't want a debate on immigration, because anyone who ever suggests that immigration should be lower rather than higher is immediately accused of racist dog whistling by the politically correct. And that was the fate of Keneally too, merely for saying in a newspaper article on the weekend that we, quote, need a migration program that puts Australian workers first. How's that a dog whistle? I say to all the uninformed commentators out there and the idiots on Twitter too. How's that a dog whistle? Given that if you knew the law, you'd know that it's long been a specific stipulation for most temporary worker visas that the business in question has first tried but failed to find an Australian for the job. Now, if you regularly watch this show, to say I'm not Kristina Keneally's greatest fan would be an understatement. But she was absolutely right to point out that record levels of immigration have kept wages down and hurt Australian workers. She was also right to point out that the ever-increasing levels of migration are a lazy way to produce economic growth. Sure, more people means a higher GDP, but it doesn't necessarily mean a higher GDP per person, which is why so many workers and families in the middle often feel they're going backwards rather than getting ahead. Keneally, of course, might have added that record levels of immigration averaging well over 220,000 a year, 220,000 a year since 2006 have not just suppressed wages, but they've also helped price housing out of the reach of many workers and put immense strain on our roads and public transport. And she might have also fessed up too that a lot of these record increases in migration happened under Labor's watch. And the failure of premiers to plan for their growing cities, well, that's been mostly a failure of Labor too. But clearly, while the Australian people say time and time again, Liberal, Labor and Green voters, that they want a fair income national conversation on how big this country gets and how quickly, it's something that political players, more often than not, shut down. And that's because all of them know that taking our ever-increasing rates of immigration out of the budget will bust the myth that Australia's had this record run of almost 30 years of economic growth. Well, guess what, Canberra? Coronavirus has busted that myth for you. Our budget's in the toilet, Australia, and with a deficit likely to exceed $100 billion and debt to hit, we're told, $1 trillion, which makes it, doesn't it? This is our best chance we've had in ages for the government to come clean with the electorate that this Ponzi scheme, this use of ever-increasing migrant intakes, permanent and temporary, is all about pump-prying an anaemic budget. And given the fact that for the first time in almost a century, Australia's national borders are closed, doesn't that present us with a very rare and very unique opportunity to take a long, hard look at what the levels of migration we currently have are doing to the budget and how sustainable they are for now and into the future? To me, it's a no-brainer. Now, I get that politicians who have to win elections tend to run a mile from anything that's controversial, especially anything that might offend the high priests of political correctness. But here, with the calamity of COVID-19, is a rare chance to reset our population trajectory and our budget. And given Keneally's comments, Labor are alive to this as well. Now, I agree with what Minister Tudge said last night, that migration is part of our national story, and that by and large, with very rare exceptions, migrants who have come here have wholeheartedly joined Team Australia. But it shouldn't be some sort of a heresy to question Australia's rate of immigration or to make the surely self-evident point that the immigration program should be run first and foremost in the interest of Australians rather than those who might want to come here. To fail to use the opportunity of this virus to think about, to debate, and perhaps even reset our immigration policy would be, to my mind, a missed opportunity, and one we may not get, likely, anytime soon.